Welcome to Clued in Mystery. I'm Sara.
And I'm Brooke, and we both love mystery.
Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Sarah. Well, we are entering what's commonly referred to as the wedding season, and that got us thinking about weddings and mysteries.
Exactly. I don't know about you, Brooke, but I love a wedding. The flowers, the dresses, the music, the cake, and of course, the mystery. Because weddings are as much a time to celebrate the new life that a couple is embarking on as they are an excellent setup for a mystery. Old wounds are revisited, tensions are high, and guests often travel out of familiar surroundings. Will everyone survive before the couple says I do? Let's get ready for murder and mayhem that comes with walking down the aisle.
Thank you, Sarah. This is going to be such a fun topic. And I think, like, from the outside looking in, it's not an obvious connection. But when you really start thinking, just like your intro said about all the components that are there, it's really ripe for the picking for a mystery.
So, I thought, Brooke, we could talk about some of the books that we've read or are familiar with that have weddings as the theme. And I'm going to start with the bachelorette party. So, leading up to the big day. And the first one on my list that I wanted to talk about is In a Dark, Dark Wood, which is a 2015 book by Ruth Ware. And I'm certain that you've read this as well.
Yes, I have. It's on my list of books that came to mind in thinking about weddings.
And so in this one, the main character is invited to the bachelorette party of someone who she's lost contact with this person. So she's not really sure why she's been invited, but she goes anyway because she's curious and almost immediately realizes that she's made a mistake. And, they're in this remote cabin and things do not go well.
That's right. So this is I loved too that I had never been familiar with the term the hen party before. Growing up in America, it was the bachelorette party, of course, but I love the hen party and I told my friends, we were all well past being married at that point, but like this is what we need to call it from now on when our daughters get married. Um and it's a glass house, which also, like, I think that there's that metaphor because when you're getting married, you are this like on display, right? Everyone's looking at the bridal party and the bride and the groom and their families. So anyway, I really liked that connection. But yeah, so it's a psychological thriller with this wedding at the center. So I was thinking about whether or not the golden age authors kind of mind this topic, and I wasn't really able to find anyone who we're real familiar with or we've talked about on the show, Sarah. And even though Agatha Christie wrote a lot of plots that hinged on people being married. For instance, if two people get married, the inheritance line changes. There are clues in her stories that involve marriage and wedding. But one example that I did find from the Agatha Christie company is from the Miss Marple collection, New Tales of Jane Marple. And this is a short story by Dreda Say Mitchell, and it's called A Deadly Wedding Day. And it involves Miss Marple attending this is in the 1960s, and she attends an interracial wedding and mystery unfolds. So I think that that's really fun that we have a Christie that also pulls in the wedding theme.
Oh, I had that on my list as well because I wondered the same thing if there were any golden age stories that we could point to. But I think weddings as a mystery trope is a more modern convention. So I have a couple of books that I've read that are about the big day. A lot of them are, destination weddings. You've got people gathering a few days beforehand, and so that gives some opportunity for, um, uh, rivalries to emerge and things to go wrong. So one of them is The Plus One, which is a 2024 release by S.C. Lalli. And guests are gathered for a couple's wedding at a luxury resort. It's very wealthy people who are supposed to be getting married, but the bride and groom are found dead the day before the wedding. And the plus one is she's actually a journalist, and so she investigates to figure out what happened because they're at this luxury resort and don't have access to a lot of traditional police investigative techniques.
The bride and the groom.
Yeah, it was a
Oh,
a great book.
it sounds great. What you said, like everybody convenes, like this puts them in proximity for more days than just like the one big day when they have a destination wedding. And I was thinking about, even if you're lucky enough to have a family who everyone gets along quite well, you have this high pressure family event. It does kind of change people's dynamics, I think. And many times you might have exes or step families coming together. So that does ramp up the tension. Well, my next mention is from one of the very first authors that I actually read modern day cozies from, and this is Diane Mott Davidson. And she has her character is a caterer. So this is a easy connection to weddings. The character is Goldie Scholes. And I actually think that Davidson has a few books where there's weddings involved because it's pretty obvious that Goldie is a caterer. But particularly Last Suppers, which came out in 1995, Goldie is getting married. This is when this amateur sleuth actually marries the homicide detective, and their rector is murdered. And so she has to solve this murder. And I liked it because she could have made the wedding of her amateur sleuth be kind of a side story to another case, but I love that she incorporated the whole thing into that book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I haven't read it, but I found a series that features a wedding planner as the sleuth. And so this is a cozy mystery series by Stephanie Blackmoore. And the first book in that series is Engaged in Death. And I think there's 5 or 6 books in the series. All of them, their title is a play on something to do with a wedding.
Oh, I love that concept. I thought of that as we were planning about how handy it would be to have a wedding planner going to all these different venues as your amateur sleuth.
It's a really good excuse to have different characters,
Hmm.
in your stories. Although I think it would probably be bad for business if you were known to be the wedding planner that that was investigating murders at the weddings.
This is true.
Um, Another book that I thought of that features a destination wedding is The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and that was released in 2020. And again, the bride and groom and the wedding party and their families have all traveled to a remote location for this wedding. And again, things unfold, and not everybody who goes there survives.
That's right. That's a great book. I like the fact that with a wedding, it's an easy excuse to go someplace remote because many times, especially if it's a wealthy family, they want that privacy, right? So they want to be away from the photographers or maybe some news or whatever. But when you're remote, then you're also cut off from resources.
Yeah, on a similar theme, I read The Unwedding, which is a 2024 release by Ali Condie. This is a Reese's Book Club pick, which sometimes they can be a bit controversial. I think people either agree with Reese or they don't. They kind of wonder what her um, decision making was in terms of selecting that for her book club. But in this one, a woman is at Big Sur for what was supposed to be her anniversary getaway, but her and her husband have split up. So she's there by herself, but there's also a wedding going on. And one of the bridal party, I think it might be the groom, ends up being dead. She finds him. And then there's a big storm. So again, they're cut off.
Mm-hmm.
And she has to figure out what's gone on.
Perfect. That sounds really good. That sounds like a great setup, Sara. Well, Joanne Fluke is another big name in the cozy world. Actually, her books have been adapted by Hallmark Mysteries into the Curious Caterer series. And her 2016 release, Wedding Cake Murder, is a perfect example in this setting. And it's, again, Hannah Swinson, the sleuth's big day. But she has to solve a murder at a baking competition. So this doesn't happen actually at her wedding, but she's preparing for her wedding. So she's going through all those emotions of making her own plans and lots of decisions. And then she has a mystery to solve on the side.
What a way to add stress to an already stressful time in your life, to have to investigate a murder as well as get the seating charts arranged.
Absolutely. Do you remember how stressed out you were the week before? Did you want to have to solve a murder?
No, I don't think I would have liked to also be solving a murder as well as planning my wedding. Well, so after the big day, the couple goes on the honeymoon, and that is also a great setup um, for a mystery, because again, we're going to, often a remote location. Um, so the first one that popped in my mind, Brooke, was Something in the Water by Catherine Steadman, which we read as one of our What Would You Do books. And this was released in 2018. And in it, the main character and her husband find this bag of money when they're on a dive trip as part of their luxury uh, honeymoon. And then the book gets into some detail about what they decide to do about having found this.
I loved that book. That was such a great read and a really fun conversation. Yeah, that came to my mind too when I was thinking about honeymoons. That was the first book that came. So obviously, it's one that stuck with me. I just had a couple more books I wanted to mention because this is from a past guest. Sara Rosett joined us to talk about historical mystery, and she writes several different series, and she's got weddings in at least two of them. She's got Marriage, Monsters in Law, and Murder from 2016, and this is about meddling in laws. And then she's got in 2017 Death at an English Wedding. And this is from her historical series. A beautiful countryside wedding is the backdrop for a high society whodunit.
Well, and I thought I would mention a book that's coming out this year. No One Was Supposed to Die at This Wedding, which is the second book in a series by Catherine Mack. And Catherine Mack is the pen name of Catherine Mackenzie, who is one of our What Would You Do authors and also an upcoming guest on the show.
Fantastic.
Brooke, I know you watched The Perfect Couple on Netflix, and that centers around a wedding. Everybody has come to the family home of a wealthy um, groom, and the maid of honor is found dead.
Hmm. That was a really great, definitely bingeable Netflix production. It's not a whole bunch of episodes. I'm thinking like maybe six. But it was really good. Everyone is a suspect. Like you have that feeling in this show. And like you said, it's very posh. These people are very wealthy. And so the setting and the grounds of their house is just like gorgeous. And I think that that's one thing about why the wedding setup works really well is that what things appear versus what's really going on. And that's so important in a mystery, isn't it? Where it looks one way, but yet something else is happening. And nowhere else, I think, in our lives do we try to make things look picture perfect so much as when we're setting up a wedding, backdrops, color coordinated flowers, like everything is supposed to be perfect. And in these stories, everything is clearly not.
That's a great point, Brooke. It's this day that we spend a lot of time focusing on making sure that, as you say, just appears perfect. And if there's cracks underneath, they get exposed.
Definitely. Mhm. Sarah, this whole week, as I'm thinking about weddings and some of these books that we've read that revolve around them, I've started to think of some scenarios like because there's a photographer on scene, it's very likely that perhaps they snapped a picture that has something important in the background. And, you also have people who are experts in other ways, like florists, pastors, um, bakers. So, like, they could perhaps help the sleuth in various ways solve a crime. And I just got to thinking that some of these scenarios might show up in something that you and I write together someday.
Definitely, Brooke. I think as you say, it's a great setup, and weddings are, because you're bringing friends and family together, and it might be one of the only times in your life where you have people from a whole variety of backgrounds together. You've got these different people who might not otherwise cross paths, but who might be excellent resources in solving the crime.
That's right. That's right. And I think that something we've talked about in other stories before happens at a wedding. And like you just mentioned, you have all the different players from your family that come together. And I love it in a story where you realize that people are connected and you didn't know they were before. Happens a lot in domestic thrillers, psychological thrillers. And it's just a great excuse for those people to come together.
Hmm. Well, I thought, Brooke, we should mention the last one at the wedding, which is a 2024 release. And uh, in that, the daughter of a UPS driver is marrying the son of a wealthy businessman at the family's summer resort. And I wanted to mention that because that is going to be our What Would You Do book this season.
Yes. So, everyone, you have time to grab yourself a copy of that and read it because, as you know, in What Would You Do episodes, we really break down the plot. So, it's filled with spoilers. So, this gives you time to get caught up and be able to enjoy that episode with us during wedding season.
Well, thanks, Brooke. This has been so fun to talk a little bit about weddings and mystery. And I hope that if you're attending any weddings this summer, they do not involve any murders.
Thank you, Sarah. That is much appreciated. And we hope the same for you, listeners. But for today, thank you for joining us on Clued in Mystery. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Sara, and we both love mystery.
Clued in Mystery is written and produced by Brooke Peterson and Sara M. Stephen. Music is by Shane Ivers. If you liked what you heard, please consider telling a friend, leaving a review, or subscribing with your favorite podcast listening app. Visit our website at cluedinmystery.com to sign up for our newsletter, The Clued In Chronicle, or to join our paid membership, The Clued In Cartel. We're on social media at Clued In Mystery.